Welcome to my Hebrew channel, Miel Hebraica, Hebrew honey, and based on Psalm 119. How sweet are your words to my taste, sweeter than honey to my mouth. Dibash. When we look to God's word, it's really is terrific spiritual food for us. So great. We're into the second chapter now, Ruth. We've finished the first chapter, about 22 verses, and the last part of that chapter was, wow, a lot of complaining and crying and all kinds of stuff on the part of Naomi about just how rough the Lord had been on her, how hard it was for life, and she was just looking at the dark side of everything. Wow. But this at this point, the whole story, turns around in a big way. We see Ruth preparing herself to go to the fields, and we see the fields of grain, and we see eventually Boaz is introduced here in the first part here. He's introduced as a relative, and relatives have privileges and obligations. So Naomi knows this very well, because at the end of this chapter, when Naomi finds out the name of the person where Ruth has been working, so yeah, he's a goel, he's a redeemer. So that adds another twist to the story. So it's a beautiful path. Things really start looking up here at this point. So let's get into the study. And again, I'll do this all first in English. So for those who are basically working with the English language only, fine, they just stay on this first part. And about halfway through, I'll start with what we see in the Hebrew. And in the end, the last three slides of the program will be verses 1, 2, and 3 in the Hebrew language. And we'll go through that in greater detail. If you want to stick around for the Hebrew, fine. If you have a hard time handling that, you can shut down about halfway through the study here. So Naomi had a relative of her husband's. Now the word relative here is moda, and this particular word in the original text is a substitute reading. The word is based on yada, to know. It's a noun based on that word, and this word is also found in the start of the third chapter. Okay, relative. If you just left it with the Karei reading, or with the Kativ reading, to the written reading, what's in the text, it would be acquaintance. It wouldn't sound so good. It's a little bit lighthearted going here. But if the word is muda with a surik, then it's a relative. Relative has, like I said, privileges and has things that have to, obligations, has to do things. So if this person's a relative, then something can be expected of that person. So he had a relative of her husband's, of Elimelech, a worthy man. Worthy here is hayil. And this word here, for the translators, requires a lot of attention as to what's happening. The word hayil, if you look it up in your dictionary and all other places it's used in the Bible, those are the warriors on the battlefields that are the strongest and toughest ones of the bunch. So the hayil. Okay. But here, there's an interesting connection here with Boaz and the worthy woman of Proverbs 31. That's Eshed Hayil. And so the woman of worth of Proverbs 31 is something you can compare to this word as well. Gibor Hayil. Gibor also means warrior, strong man. The house that David had built on the edge of, beside his palace, was Beit Giborim, the house of the warriors. So those were his bodyguards. So the Giborim. So Gibor. Word also works in the feminine sense. Giberet, that's the woman that runs a household. So, but anyway, worthy then here, hayil, the definition of this word actually derives from what we read in this entire story. In other words, what is a hayil? It's someone who pays attention to details, willing to care for people, willing to reestablish names, willing to follow the customs of his people, willing to, yeah, uh, willing to help people. So that's the word worthy then is derived actually. We're start defining what this word means here. Just look to the rest of the story for the definition of this particular word. So worthy of a man, worthy man, Gibor Hayil of the clan, Mishpahat. This is clan. The word clan here is, and we see it again over here. It's repeated. You have clan, and then you have clan over here at the end of Ruth 2 verse 1, clan, and then clan. This is literally the working group. The ones, the same root will appear somewhat further into the second chapter, and there it is, the servanthood. Ruth, in fact, calls herself a servant. Okay, so the root meaning of this clan word means those who are willing to work together, those who are willing to cooperate with each other or help each other, and so forth. So the working group, the working group of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Okay, Boaz is a very interesting name, and again we head back to the Eshed Hayil of Proverbs 31, and the virtuous woman is the one. Yeah, virtuous woman is the one that has strength in her arms. In strength she goes forward. Ba'az, okay, Ba'az. So we see a beautiful example of it there in Proverbs 31, and there it's used to describe the strength of a person's arms, and here it's in strength. So that's what this word means. He's a man of strength, a man of power of strength. Okay, Boaz. Translators sometimes get a little lazy here. They'll say, oh, he's a rich man, or he was a powerful man, or something like that. In reference to worthy here, but virtuous. Actually, virtuous would work just as well as worthy here. When you think back to the virtuous woman, Eshed Hayil, he's a Gibor Hayil. So Boaz is a person of strength, not just physical strength, moral fiber, moral strength, moral character. And so Boaz, very descriptive, beautiful name for this individual and what he was willing to do and what he did to help those in need. Now Ruth, okay, the Moabite, again we see this title. She didn't lose it. Doesn't lose it through the story at all the way through. It follows her right through the whole story. It's an important element of the story to have her constantly referred to as the Moabite. And it's kind of like saying, oh, this poor girl, the Moabite. But we'll try to understand that, okay? So Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, the sweet lady, Naomi, her mother-in-law, let me go, lech hashadeh. Now this is the same word as elechna. Okay, yeah, we will see a first person verb here. I will go, and then it's not just that first person, but it's also a petition, hortatory. Please let me go. Okay, na, and na is a well-known little particle. We find it with Hosanna, Hoshiana, Mana, all of these things end with the na. So please let me go to the field. And this is a definite article here. It seems like, oh, there's a certain field picked out already. It isn't just any field. There's a definite article in the front of this particular word, and the field. And so it isn't just fields of Moab. This is a specific field here. Belongs to Bethlehem. Okay, and glean, lakach. Now the word glean, among all of these first verses of chapter 2, there's a certain root consonant that is used time after time after time. Well, I haven't really counted it up, at least 3 or 4 or 5 times through here, and it's the kof, and the kof is a line with a knot through the end, and so lakach. So this one here is to go and gather up. Okay, gather up, and that means pulling the sheaves together and tying them. Okay, pull sheaves together, tie them. Okay, tying things together. I will tie up among the ears of grain, shibulim. Interesting word here for ears of grain. Um, when we see the word glean, we sort of think, oh, this is just simply the scraps that are on the ground. But shibulim actually means it's like flowing waves and that's in the Psalms. It's about 2 or 3 times used in the Psalms, in a sense of seeing something that's flowing like water would flow. So if you're ever grown up in a area that produces a lot of grain, it's one of the most beautiful sights in the world is to see the waves of grain out over the fields that are growing with grain. When the wind is blowing them along, those fields just look like an ocean, flowing waters, even though it is grain. And so it's a beautiful picture here of that, the shibulim. This shibulim here, ears of grain, shares a word, or it's shibboleth. It has a feminine ending to it as well, and this was there was actually a variation of pronunciation of this word, shibboleth and siboleth, okay? And that caused quite the stir among the Ephrathites when they tried to cross the River Jordan. If you couldn't pronounce it right, you got yourself killed doing that. So anyway, shibboleth and shibulim. Shibboleth, I think, has gone into the English language as get it right sort of thing. It's somewhat distant relationship to what's happening here. So ears of grain, and so it's sort of painting a beautiful picture of, wow, this is a fantastic place to be, and it's a nice place. This particular word, shibulim, gets defined in a big way in Pharaoh's dream when he sees the ears of grain, the ones that are filled up and the ones that are dried out, and that comparison. Those are full years, lean years, and so shibulim also. I think it's about 5 or 6 times in 2 different occasions. First, the Pharaoh has a dream, and then, of course, Joseph has the interpretation of that dream of the shibulim, the ears of grain. The shibulim, and after him, in whose sight, okay, in whose eyes, actually it's literally eyes, in whose eyes of him, and I'm, and so I shall find favor, okay, I shall find a good place, I shall find connection there, okay, in whose sight I will find favor, or I shall find favor, emasha. And she said to her, go, my daughter, and so this is Naomi said to go, biti, and this is lech. Now, here is the hortatory, elech, and this is lech, and this one is, so we're this same verb, the same to go and go, as we see in the first chapter, where you go, I go, same thing here. So this one's in first person, this one's an imperative then, okay, lech, just go, okay, lech. And so she set out, and she went, and she gleaned. Okay, this is glean. Again, the kof is working there in the field. After the reapers, like kotsrim. Now kotsrim, that particular word, that particular noun, starts out with a kof, and those are the ones that are going through the field, cutting off the corn or the wheat, the barley, and tying it up, and then having the sheaf, okay, the sheaf. So those are the kotzrim, the reapers. It's going to appear 3 or 4 times throughout this chapter, and they're the ones that are working, kotzrim, the ones that gather and tie things into sheaves. And she happened, and this one is a word in the Hebrew language that's repeated. So and it's Miker, Yekra, and so it's a kofresh. Again, it's a kofresh. So in other words, kof is getting a lot of mileage here in terms of root consonants. And this means it so happened, so happened. Okay, when it's repeated here, and repeating it in this way, it's kind of like going, and it just so happened. Just say it. You will say it that way. Okay, and it just so happened In other words, yes, it happened, but something was going on. Okay, somebody was arranging things, be it on the part of Ruth, or be it on the part of God. Okay, God here is centered to this particular field, this place. Okay, came to the part lakach. Again, we've seen kof working again. Portion, part, also means the word inheritance. So this is the part that was assigned to Boaz's family right from when you go back a couple, 2 or 3 generations, and you're back with Joshua, and Joshua, of course, apportioned all the fields out, and so each tribe got their portion, and then each tribe uh, laid out with cords. Okay, lakach, kof. You can see kof running again here, and so each field was laid out in a very specific way, and so it's the part or inheritance or section defined with the rope. Okay, kof. So part of the field, and in ancient times, they didn't just they measured it out with a rope. They didn't leave the ropes laying out there. They would actually put a boundary stone at each corner, sometimes with the names inscribed on it. And archaeologists have found these stones. Found one at Gezer like that, and so yeah. And the Bible is very specific. It's one of the worst sins you can commit is to move a boundary stone. That boundary stone is placed in place, and it's not going to be moved. It's going to stay right where it is. So, a boundary stone. So the field belonging to Boaz, okay, man of strength here, man of strength, in strength, who was of the clan, the working group of Elimelech. Okay, so Elimelech. It's interesting that we see Elimelech introduced here because Elimelech had certain rights and certain possessions as part of this clan, and who's going to who's going to care for those rights? And we're looking now towards Boaz to reestablish the name and the rights of Elimelech here, and Elimelech, his sons and his widow and so forth, and so it's an interesting connection here to be reconnected with Elimelech, at least in the legal sense, at least in the historical sense. Elimelech has died, but his inheritance is still there, and somebody has to look to that. And the person they look to that for is Boaz. So Boaz had a relationship. There was apparently one other. These were close relatives. Apparently, there was one other man between these two. And then he's called Philoni, which means just that guy. And so the second, third, the fourth chapter, the beginning of the fourth chapter, Boaz has to deal with another relative right in the middle of Elimelech and Boaz. So on to the study now of the Hebrew. As I said at the start, the relative here is Mudah, and you're going to pronounce it Mudah. This is the Kareh. This is the substitute reading. This is what you're going to find out in the margin. Okay, the Masoretes said, okay, we want to have a change in the reading. We're not going to change anything of the letters that are in here. We're going to leave everything just the way it is, where there's no editing of text. Okay, we're going to leave the consonants just the way they are. Okay, that's Mem, Yod, Dalet, Ayin. Now, if you would just pronounce this Miyada, okay, there would be acquaintance. Okay, if you just pronounce this as Midah, as someone she knew, she happened to know, doesn't come over very strong. It seems like Naomi just happened to know this person. No, that wasn't the case. This person was related to Naomi through Elimelech. Okay, so there's a really good reason for reading or using the Kareh here, the substitute. There's also this one relates to the start of the third chapter, and we find the same word there. It isn't used a whole lot in the Bible. It's used, I think, only really in these two places. But they do define each other. And over in the third chapter, beginning of the third chapter, the reason that Naomi is telling Ruth what to do at the threshing floor is based on what's coming, or what should be coming from a relative, from a mudah. Okay, so if you look at the way this ketiv is written, it's written with mem yod surik. You're just never going to see a yod surik in a normal reading. It doesn't work. You will surik generally is just used to give the u sound, u. But if you take the kare and mem vav dalet ayin, this vav here has to work down the surik, and the way you show the sound of the surik, you just put a kibbutz on it. So the way ketiv kares work is the kare is not going to have any vowel pointing. The ketiv will have its consonants, but the vowel pointing that's on the ketiv has to be used over at the kare. So you have to transpose, so you have to mentally move these across. This then is shiva. This kibbutz is going to sound like a surik, and then the dalet is going to be a comet. So these first one, the second, and the third one are easy. The middle one, it's just simply the sound of the kibbutz showing that this is a surik. Okay, so mudah. Okay, so that's how I have the I have this transliteration right here, because it follows this kibbutz, which is supposed to be working as a sudik. It's supposed to be a sudik, because when it's a sudik, you have a relative. If you have a yod, you have an acquaintance. Okay, so in agreement with what the Masoretes are doing here. That's fine. We understand why they're doing it, and it's a good thing here to see that. If he's a relative, things are required of him. If he's just simply met on the street and waved hi, no, he wouldn't expect much of that. So it defines what's happening in the passage. So good to see that. So Boaz, here's Boaz. Boaz is an ish gibor hayil, okay, a man, gibor, warrior type, hayil, of strength, okay. And if you just simply took the dictionary definitions of these words, it would sound like, oh, he's just a big tough guy. If you look to the way the story functions, it's better to have worthy or virtuous, okay, for translation, mostly on the basis of hayid, and you compare it. Later on in the story, Ruth is going to be declared as an Eshet Hayil. She's going to get the same, she'll have the same title that the woman of Proverbs 31 has. And even it's used later on, there will be Hayil in Israel, all the way out into the 4th chapter. This is going to appear there again. Virtue, and there the virtue is shared among all the women of the place. So it isn't just one place. And this is something that's very interesting about Hayil. You find it also, incidentally, in Proverbs 31, you have Eshet Hayil, it begins like that, but virtue then also is something that's shared with all the other women. Okay, so all the other women also can be Hayil, okay, can be virtuous. So it's an interesting connection between Proverbs 31 and the book of Ruth, because in the book of Ruth, Eshet Hayil, you can begin with one person, but that also then is shared with all the other women over in chapter 4. In Proverbs 31, Eshet Hayil, that's how you start out that particular study. And then towards the end, you have Hayil compared. Many are virtuous, but you, in fact, that's how it ends towards the end. Many are virtuous, Hayil, but you are the best one of them. So that's Hayil also is something other women can have, of course. So Ish Gibor Hayil, and Hayil is virtue or worthiness of a man. As I said, definition of Hayil here, we can base that on all of the activities and everything that Boaz does in this story. That's what really kind of tells us what Hayil means here. So if you're going to write your dictionary, what does Hayil mean? Oh, well, it's all the things that Boaz does. Okay, got it. Now, if you went to the rest of the scripture, of course, Hayil is used in many other ways, with mostly in battlefields and tough people and so forth. Gibor is also used to Giborim are the guards of David and so forth. So, but in this particular story, this particular phrase here, really becomes very specific for how this story works. So Boaz, and this is in strength. I did drop back to Proverbs 31, and the virtuous woman in strength moves her arms. Okay, Boaz. Okay, so here it is in strength. Okay, Boaz, Boaz. Okay, here the O sound is produced by a full out holum, complete holum, and here it's just by normal holum. But that's what this particular name means, in strength. Okay, in strength. Good name for the man. Not just physical strength, but moral strength, moral fiber. So Boaz. Ruth the Moabite, just very simple reference to Ruth as a Moabite. We see that over and over and over again in the story, that she is the Moabite woman, and it just gets repeated again. It's known as a gentilic, in other words, reference to her nationality. Okay, so Ruth Moabite. Okay, Hu le Naomi me Yuda le Isha Ish Gibor Hail mi Mishfahat Elimelech Hu Shemo Boaz. So, and to Naomi, this is a possessive preposition here, belonging to. You see this kind of possessive quite often. This use of the lamed, purpose or possession. This one's possession. If you're an archaeologist, this possessive lamed goes a long way. See, you find a jar with Elimelech to the king, or Yoshef or August, something like that. Anything that belongs to somebody, and you would write on the jar, you'd use the lamed, belongs to, and that's how it's put on there. Okay, La Naomi, to Naomi, belonging to Naomi. Possessive use of the lamed. Me Yuda, there was now the root here is yada, to know somebody, to understand somebody, to know somebody. Little dot on the top that there's going to be a change out, or a change of the pronunciation. And the change is based on, normally you would never see a yod with a kibbutz on top of it. Kibbutz generally kibbutz would go in front of something else here, but me u da. So this kibbutz tells you how to pronounce this vav right here. This vav is going to be a surik then. Okay, so me u da, me u da, me u da. He is a family member. He's a relative. Okay, he's somebody who belongs. And this one harmonizes this particular word with what's in the 3rd chapter. So if you had asked the Masoretes, why are you going to do that? Oh, it's the same thing as what we see at the start of chapter 3. So harmony, and also making it much from somebody who's simply an acquaintance to somebody who has things to do, somebody who has obligations. Okay, so it strengthens what happens here as to what Boaz is supposed to be doing. So, Me Yuda le Isha. So you got Ish, which is a man. See the same word here. This is standing all by itself, and this one is agglutinated big time right here. Nice revy on top of it. So this is to Isha, to husband of her. Okay, and that belong to, in a very same kind of possessive lamed right here. You belong to Naomi, belong to the man, to her husband of her, belong to her husband of her. Mapika on the end here. This is a pronoun, suffix pronoun, feminine, third feminine singular suffix pronoun at the end here. So leisha, ish, a man. Okay, no article on the front, but we're at the point of a man, and then let's define who this man is. Okay, there's the man. Okay, we're going to define who this person is. Okay, Mish ish gibor hayil. He is a vigorous guy with strength. Okay, hayil, with virtue. Okay, worthiness. Like I said at the introduction, this the whole entire story kind of defines what this word's going to mean. So, gibor hayil, mish, mi mishfahat. Get down to the root here, shafahat. means servant, okay? And reading into the story, when we get to it, stick with me through the study. We're going to get to this one in another 10 or 12 studies, and we'll find Shaphat. Shaphat is servanthood, okay? Servant. In fact, this is Ruth is talking about herself. She's going to be a servant, or she is a servant among servants, okay? Among the other servants of Boaz. So what it is then, Shaphat is to be in service. This is, in a sense, the work group, the clan, okay? Very much of how things were done in ancient times, even to this day, of any grouping of people, men mostly, sometimes, yeah, women included, but the ones who were willing to work together. In other words, you had to cooperate. You had to, if you were doing sheep, you had an assigned group of the family who went out and took care of the sheep. If you're doing a harvest, you're doing the planting, you're doing the harvesting and stuff, you also had an assigned group there. These people had mutual obligations to each other. They were there to help each other. If you went to war, you called on your clan to do it. Boom, we got to go chase some bad guys all the way to Damascus. Okay, get your Shaphat to do it. Okay, so very much a clan structure. And incidentally, we're looking at the time of the Judges, and this was the base governing group of the people at that time. Clans are in nomad peoples. Clans are very important. That's where you find your identity. That's where you're going to do all your work. That's where you're going to provide the work. And that's where you're going to receive the benefits, and that's where you receive protection and so forth. So, Misha Fahat, okay, your clan, your gang. Gang has a little bit negative sense to it, but okay, Mishpahat, the clan. Elimelech, of course. My God is king. Interesting to see the word pop up again, the name of the person who had died over in Moab, and maybe in a sense, okay, maybe God should be king here in this situation. So again, restoring the name, restoring the person. Shemo, and the name of his name. This is Shem, and then when you add add holem to the end, you have a pronoun on here, and his name, Boaz, in strength. Okay, in strength. I already talked about that in the introduction. Vatomer Ruth ha el Naomi el lakach na ha shade ve el lakotach be shibolim achar asher em sat chem hen be'nav vatomer lach leki biti. And she said, this is a feminine prefix form of to say something. It's an interesting tomer. Yeah, accenting move to the Miel Ra, which is a little bit unique here, but tomerut. Okay, boom, boom. I guess these are very much conjunctive here. So, tomerut. Hamovia, this is the Moabite woman, identification of her nationality, her racial background, and so forth. She keeps the title all the way through the story. And Naomi, to Naomi. Here's Ruth is taking initiative. In other words, wow. Pretty sure they went past all of these fields of grain as they were walking into the city, and probably very impressive to see these waves of grain all around them along the roadside as they walked to the city. Naomi to Naomi. El Kachna. El Kachna. 1, 2, 3. Got 3 syllables here. And Metech right here to make sure this first sereg gets pronounced properly. Okay, El Kachna. This is The verb here is halach. We're going to see it right here again in an imperative form, and this one is a hortatory, a first-person hortatory. In other words, I would like to, please. Okay, let me walk. Okay, let me go. The root is halach, hey lamat kaf. The aleph here is first-person singular prefixed on the whole thing here, and then the kach and na are. We've seen elech in the start in the chapter 1. I am going, where you go, I go, and there was elech was a prefix form there of the verb. Here it's another version of that prefix form, elech ka. Na, I will walk. I would like to walk. Please let me walk. Please. Okay. Nach is a hortatory particle. And we see it all over the Old Testament. We see it with Hoshiana. We see it in the New Testament, Hosanna. We see it in Mana. What is this? Please tell me what this is, please. Save me, please, Hoshiana, and so forth. So na is a well-known hortatory or petition type particle. It's just particle of petition. When you see it at the end of something, it'll be at the end of a verb, and it makes that verb something you want to do. Please, I would like to do that. Okay, Hoshiana. Or you want somebody else to do it too. So, ilka na. Please let me walk. Ha shade, to a field, the field. Interesting that this one started right out with a definite article right here. Ha shade, the field. Okay, and she has in mind, probably visualizing in her mind, there's a certain field I'd like to go to. Now that field interests me over there. Okay. Ve al lekata beshibalim. And I, again here, first person, I will walk and I will glean, I will gather. Okay. So again, and this is the first time we see a kof in our study. We're going to see a whole lot of it along the way, but here's where we start out with it. Al la kohta. Hatev kames, okay, hatev kames is a halved out kames, which normal kames are pronounced and then halved out kames are hatev pata, hatev kames. That is O. Okay, so when you see that, an O has to come right in the middle. I'll have to admit sometimes I don't see it, but I do see it right now. Ve ala kohta, okay, and then I will gather, I will glean, okay, and using again, if you take the kof as a line or a cord with a knot on the end, I will go among the grains, shibulim, and gather them up, and I will tie them, a knot around them with the same stalks, and I will make a sheave, which I can then I'll just gather it all up, and later on beat out the heads of grain in order to harvest it. So this is what's happening right here. El kochta, and I will glean, I will gather up and knot into sheaves the shibulim. Shibulim here are ears of grain, okay, so among or in, this is preposition in. Shibulim, this is the masculine form of it. The feminine form is far better known in English, shibboleth. Okay, shibboleth. Shibboleth in the sense is something that's been worked on. Okay, but shibulim here, these are the ears of grain, and they're very much two different sides of the definition of this particular word. We get back into Genesis and the dream of Pharaoh with the thick or the well-developed heads of grain and the very thin heads of grain, the one beating the other one out, and this is very much parallel to the cows. This is Pharaoh's dream, and it's also Joseph's interpretation of it. Shibulim works big time there as to the ears of grain. So ears of grain here, shibulim, and then the second sense of this word, shibol, this is then the waves of water that extend out and are sort of a beautiful passage of waves of water spreading out, but also the conduit of oil leading oil into the lamp that's burning. So you got current. Okay, so there's a current. There's flowing. So actually, what you're seeing here is a very beautiful picture. The flowing fields of grain. In other words, waving fields of grain. Okay, the waves of grain. And here the author is very much an artist as to showing a beautiful side of what's happening there on the field. Okay, Beshibulim, among the waving fields of grain, among the ears of grain there. That's where she would like to go and gather. Now aher, behind, okay, asher, which or who, emasha, hen. Now we've seen elech, we've seen elakach, and now we see emasha. So these are all first persons right here. Elakach, elakata, and then matzah. I will find. I will find hen, favor, grace or favor, good place, hen. Okay. Hannah, as a name, is derived from this, Hannah. Hen, emotion, I will find favor. Be, a nav, in his eyes of him, and a, there are eyes, plural form here, and then of him, and then in his eyes, okay, in his eyes, in his sight. Eyes and sight are often work together. In fact, later on in the passage, we're going to have Boaz telling Ruth, point your eyes that way and look over it very carefully, using eyes also as to see something. Okay, Be'enav Vatomer, and she said, and now this is Ruth said something, and then this was Tomer. Here, look at this. You got Tomer Ruth, accenting kicked over here, so joined up with Ruth. Here, it is a full-out Miel accenting. This is normal accenting. This is the one that sort of catches your attention, so isn't quite. It runs it over onto Ruth, and here it's no Tomer. Okay, good. Back to Miel accenting here. Okay, Batomer lach, to her. Lahi beti. Okay, take a walk, go, do it. Halach. The root here is hey lamat kaf. Hey is of course suffered fetuses right here, and does that all the time. Don't worry about it. It's very normal for this particular root. And helakach, take a walk, go. Biti, my daughter. Okay, and very much a sense of care and love for her, my daughter. You're my daughter, and so go ahead and do this. I authorize. I want you to do this. That's a good thing. Let's just get going. Okay. And as I said, we're repeating what we've seen in the first chapter of where you go, I go. So now Naomi's telling her, yeah, you can go. Go ahead. You already said before you're going to do it. Go ahead and do it. Okay. And then telech, and again we got the very same verb right here, and that's a feminine prefix form of halach, okay, with the tau here in the front of it. Telech, and again a milel accenting. Nice to see that. I don't know why, but anyway, interesting. Telech, and then she walked. Tavo, and she arrived. She came. Okay. Both nice root here with everything in it, with the bet holam aleph. That's how you're going to find it in a dictionary. Although dictionary, I think they put it in with a surik here. Tabo be te laket, and then she gathered, she gleaned. Okay, again the telaket. So ta. All of these are third person feminine prefixes. And then she gleaned, she gathered. Bashde, in the field. Again, this is a definite patah right here. Very much a definite article in front of ba and a preposition, in the field. Achre, behind, after. Hakotzrim. Kotzrim are reapers, the gatherers, the workers, and their work is to take the sheaves, cut them off, wrap them up, and that's their work, kotzrim. Okay, and this also is used. These are the workers. Kasir is the harvest, but this is kotzrim. Okay, the harvesters. Okay, kotzrim veyaker mekereha. Okay, and here the root is repeated. Okay, take a look here. kofresh, kofresh. Okay, and it was just so happened. In other words, it was luck. Now, if luck is luck, 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 so many times you can repeat it. It's it just so happened. It just so happened, um, which means yes, it happened, but there was some purpose behind it. Whether that purpose was driven from God or driven from Naomi or from Ruth, uh, not entirely clear. It doesn't have to be clear. Just oh, it just so happened. Well, when something just so happens, it means somebody was thinking about it or planning it, and hopefully, yeah, it could have been both. Could have been both, or all of them. Naomi, Ruth, and the Lord. Just so happened that Yaker, and so happened Mikara of her, and she was lucky for her luck. Okay, it just so happened that it happened. Okay, so okay, it just so happened Mikir, Yaker, and if you're following your person of verbs, you got feminine, 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 uh, and then here also the luck is masculine apparently. Yaker. Okay, this then is it so happened. It so happened Mikara to her happening to what was happening. Helakat Shadeh. Now, take a look here. You got cough, and boy, it really does look. First time you read it, you're gonna think this word and this word are the same. They aren't, but they do have a lot of similarity to them. Okay, you got laket and lakat. Okay, so you got lakat. This means the portion, and again we have the cough working here as a chord, because this is the chord that was laid out to define the portion of the field. In other words, the chord that's stretched out, measured up the field with the knots on the end, and then was used to position the boundary stones. That's what this is, the boundary defined inheritance field. Okay? This is Boaz's field all the way from way back from the times of Joshua, when this field got laid out in this way, and it's belonged to him and his family ever since. And so this is the inheritance. This is something, okay, this is something God is giving to you. You should not, walk away from it. You shouldn't abandon it. You should care for it. It's yours because the Lord has given it to you. It's been measured out for you. Okay, so here, very much portion, inheritance, what belongs to you, what you have inherited, what's a very important part of your life. Okay, helakat, your portion. Hasadeh, of the field. The Boaz, that belonged to Boaz, again, a possessive preposition here, belonging to Boaz, the Boaz. Asher, who was Mishpahat. We've seen Mishpahat at the start of the story. We see it again right here. And we look to the root here, Shafahat, servant, and we'll see it a little bit later into chapter 2, and where Ruth refers to herself as a Shaphat. This then means somebody who is serving, somebody who is together in service, your work group, okay, your work group. And translators have had to kind of scratch their heads as to just what is this? Is this the family? Is this the clan? And those words have been used to translate this. That's fine. Okay, clan, family, grouping. But in a sense, it's and when you think back at what a clan is, it's those who are together to accomplish a common goal. Those who've stuck together, especially in nomadic societies, you're going to have these groupings that are willing to work together, help each other, care for each other, and do things together. So this is the basic work group of Elimelech. Okay, and Boaz here belongs to this group, to the work group. In other words, there was probably 10 years before, Boaz and Elimelech had to work together on some things on the fields or whatever things, shared tasks they had. They probably knew each other. And so there was a close relationship. Boaz knew the family, of course, knew what had happened. And then There's another person between Boaz and Elimelech. That is a strong theme in somewhat in the third chapter, but a very strong theme at the beginning part of chapter 4. The Feloni, that guy, it was also part of the Mishpahat, okay, the work group. And of course, Boaz has to deal with that person. And that person has to define himself as to whether he's going to stay part of the group or is he going to opt out. Good, well, he opted out. So okay, so Mishpahat, okay, plan, working group, sticking together, watching each other's backs, that kind of thing. So beautiful passage here, and really off to a beautiful start. Life has been rough on Naomi and on Ruth, but now the Lord is working to restore their lives and restore their families and restore the relationships they have that they should be building now again with the clan. And Boaz, of course, as you know, plays a very important part in that. He is the redeemer. He's a redeemer in the sense of taking care of what's happening in the family, but he's also a redeemer in a sense of that the Lord has sent to restore the family. Redemption is a very important theme throughout this book, and it's one of the reasons why Ruth is also involved in the 5 women of the genealogy of Matthew, because all of those were involved, especially Mary. She was the mother of the Redeemer, so there's a connection. Okay, things have to be put back together, and the women then of Matthew and of course Mary brought things together, and she gave birth to Jesus, who redeems those who believe in him. So may God bless, may God strengthen you in this day.